Welcome, my beautiful humans, to the Pan Talk podcast. I'm Joe Metzger, and this is the podcast for our pansexual, panromantic, and pangender lovies. I'll be having discussions with my co-host Anil, Ratchandani, as well as interviewing my guests to learn more about their journey, and we'll talking about anything and everything in the queerverse. And if you don't identify as queer, don't worry, we want you here too. Please remember that this podcast is for those 18 and older, and some of the topics may be controversial. Trigger warnings will be in the description. Listener discretion is always advised. If you want to be a guest on Pan Talk, you can email us at pantalkpod@gmail.com. Without further ado, let's get queer. Well, we have a special treat for y'all today. You get to hear my sexuality story and Anil's sexuality story in a special double episode. Enjoy! Welcome to the Pan Talk podcast, where the pancakes are always gluten-free. Today, we're going to be doing a very special episode, aren't we, Boosty?
Yes.
We are going to tell our stories, our coming out stories, our journey into our sexuality.
Yes.
And so you guys can get to know us better, and kind of see where we're coming from. And we love to talk about ourselves.
And also help people probably going through the same journey or questioning themselves and, wondering what's next. And we'd love to share, how we went through life and how all of this came about. Well, not this, but just each other, how everything happened for us. But I will start with Joe's story. We'll start with Joe's story because it is mostly, pansexual. The pansexual identity, I think, is still unclear to most or very, very new to a lot of people.
Even those of us who are pan.
So because, we do believe, like what we always say in our relationship, we're always ever evolving, ever learning, ever growing. So there's no limits to, who we are, what we do. It's always just we adjust to the new things that happen. Because, life will always be changing. And if you're not in a mindset where you continuously evolve, then, maybe life's not meant for you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just like, but you have to, I think it has to be a healthy level of evolution. So let's start with Joe. So tell us, how did you get to the point where you were like, I must be different?
Oh, it took a while. I don't think I was aware of it on a conscious level. Certainly, I grew up very hetero-passing, although probably not as hetero-passing as I thought. Because from the comments I got later when I came out, clearly I was not the only one that knew. But certainly I thought I was heterosexual, and as a pansexual, I feel like I'm a little bit of a lot of orientations, right? So I have a scoliosexual side, I have a homosexual side, I have a heterosexual side. And more, even more than that.
Food-blooded side.
Yes, I'm homosexual. I love me some hummus. So, there's a lot there. And so I think I was able to reach into the heterosexual side and lean on that because that's what we're taught. It's that heteronormativity, that's what, I'm a man, so I have to find a woman, and that's what I need to do. So, it was a long journey for me. And I came from a very sex-toxic household. And so my sexuality was not something I was free to explore in any way because male sexuality was it was repressed or looked down upon. There was a lot of fear about male sexuality in my family. All of the women in my family, there was a lot of generational trauma that got passed down from my grandfather, who thank God I never met. He was a horrific abuser. And so I mentioned that only to say that it did kind of push me down in that way. So even heterosexuality was difficult for me, and so I didn't date or have sex until I was in my 30s, actually. So I spent a long time in this I felt like I was just kind of stuck. And when I hit high school, I had feelings to date other genders, but I didn't know how to express that, and my friends were all hetero and didn't really, it's not that they weren't necessarily supportive, but they didn't have that energy to flourish. I think there's certain parts of ourselves that we need people like ourselves to flourish and to really explore. And I didn't have access to that then. I even had a friend who said to me, I was talking about, I didn't know the term pansexual in high school, so I talked about being bi-curious was the term that was floating around my high school. And I brought up bisexuality as a concept, just as a concept, not announcing anything to my friend. And she said, I don't believe in bisexual. You're either gay or you're straight. And that really like,
There's a lot of them.
yeah, that shut me down, I think. And I was so sensitive, like I was so sensitive to that kind of input that it really like I internalized that and it shut me down. And we're pretty sure now, having known this person, and we're not in contact anymore, but we're pretty sure they're a closet. Because 2 separate therapists said so to different people who interacted with them. So let's just go with that. 20 years of just hiding from dating and sex, and it wasn't until my 30s that I started going and getting outside help and therapy and learning that I had a condition called sexual and romantic anorexia. So an anorexic is anorexic with food, but that doesn't mean they don't want to eat. You know, that's the thing people get confused about. Anorexics desperately want to eat food, but they're like locked into this pattern. And I desperately wanted to have sex and romance, but I was locked into the pattern. So I learned how to heal from that. And I did, and I started dating for the first time, and it was so exciting and so disappointing and joyful and painful and everything. And I had a few nice experiences, but sex was still something that I could not do. I had all this fear around. And so a friend of mine who knew my journey said, what if we did a practice relationship? They're very sexually open. They're very open to being intimate with people that are friends. And they said, what if we do a practice relationship, and if we both feel comfortable, when we get to that point, we could be sexual with each other, and then you have someone safe to practice with. So I did this practice relationship with this friend of mine, thank God, knowing people in the sex positive community who were up into that. And I had a therapist.
Yeah, so it's guided by therapy.
Yeah, therapist guided us with exercises. So like taking off my clothes in front of a mirror for the first time with someone else was terrifying, and I got past that. And then getting naked for the first time with someone, I got past that. And then we got to that point, we were sexual for a few months with each other, and we practiced all the vanilla stuff, and I got really comfortable. And you know what makes that different from like going to a sex worker, which I'm nothing against that. I think sex work should be legalized.
Yes.
I think there just wouldn't have been as much intimacy.
Oh, I think there wouldn't be as much science to it.
Yeah.
That I think that's the thing.
That
helped
therapy.
you. Yeah, there is no like process. It was just okay. Let's do it.
Right. So I did that, and then we decided, because we had built an intimate connection with each other, that it was best to break contact, and so we did. And that was hard. Having a breakup, in addition to the practice relationship, was really healthy for me, because it gave me an opportunity to let go of somebody and then start dating, because this person and I would never be able to have the kind of relationship that I wanted. It was a practice from the beginning, and they were polyamorous and had other relationships that they were in, and at that time, that wasn't something I was interested in. So
polyamorous is something we will tackle too down the road, so just mention it now.
Stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. So being sexual for the first time in that healing, I just went on a roller coaster after that. And I started dating other genders, and then it was June of 2022, and I went to WeHo Pride, and I was standing in the parade, next to the parade, and I realized I'd never been to a parade before, a pride parade. In my whole life at 37, like, that's a little strange. Like, as a straight ally, like, why haven't I been? It's because I was afraid of identifying, because I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And then I realized in that moment I was pansexual, and I changed all my dating profiles around, and I got my hair dyed rainbow, and the day after I got my hair dyed rainbow, I had a first date with a special gentleman. Me. And those of you who heard our previous episode, we just had our 1-year anniversary.
Yes, we did. My question though is, how do you know you're pan? Like, how did that happen? Like, how did that process happen? Because, I was like, well, I'm gay. I think I'm gay. I will get into it in my time. But how do you wake up and be like, actually, I like everybody?
I mean, not every single individual. I mean, you see, there's still an attraction element. And for me, I think the spiritual work that I did, my recovery in therapy as well, and also work in Tantra. Tantra is an ancient form of many different, it's kind of a multi-discipline practice, but people know it for its sensuality and sexuality and stuff. Which is fantastic. We've been doing some of those exercises together, and they're very exciting.
Very fun.
And it's about learning to connect to the energy. And one of many things about Tantra is learning to connect to the energy of the other person. And it's something you talk to people who are long-term practitioners of Tantra. They stop seeing people as genders, and they start seeing more of them as souls, as people. And that helped remove some of those expectations and things around gender and realized like I like being with all genders. I like femme-bodied individuals, I like mass-bodied individuals, I like non-binary people, I like trans people. I like experiencing each individual's, their body, their sexuality, their sensuality. Who are they as a person? How do we connect intellectually? What do we like? And like every soul is unique. And so I see people as souls. So it's about the energy exchange. And that's how I know I'm pan. Because I used to say I don't have a gender preference. Like sometimes I have a preference. Sometimes I want one, I'm interested in one gender or another. That's slowly like changing the more I practice my pansexuality. Gender is less and less important. But I would say that I don't have a gender requirement. Someone who's monosexual, homosexual, or heterosexual, for example, they can only be romantic and sexual with someone of a specific gender. And that's okay, by the way. That's okay. That's not a bad thing. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm boring. I only like one gender. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, I love you, but don't think of it that way. Don't limit yourself. And so I look at that and go, okay, well, I don't really care what the gender of the other person is. I think for me, because of the world we live in, I was not very trustful of cis men from the experiences that I've had. And also that programming from childhood that men are bad was kind of what I was received. So I looked at that kind of that way. And so I didn't trust men then. So like the fact that, you know, and I always joke, I always say I'll never do something and then I end up doing it. It's like I'll never be in a relationship with a cis man. And I'm like, oh, you know, and then there's all these other nevers down the road, you know, and it's just like, and they always happen. Like I stop saying I'll never do something because then it'll happen. But yeah, so for me, it was just knowing that on a deep soul level, that gender was not a barrier to sensuality and sexuality for me and a partner. And since then, I've been with people of all different genders, really, all over the spectrum, sensually, sexually, intellectually, romantically. And so I've learned in that dating experience that, oh, I am this, like from the experience of it. Not that you have to have sex with every gender, or there are no qualifications for being a certain orientation. It's just something you feel in your heart, I guess.
When did this start manifesting? When did you start questioning, like, why am I attracted to this? I mean, it doesn't have to be sexual. Again, it's like any attraction. When did that start?
I mean, probably as soon as I hit puberty, I would say. Although when I look back at like all the things I like to watch and like I like to be around women more. I found women more enjoyable to be around, more relaxing. I connected with them more. I was more emotionally available for whatever reason, whether it was how I was genetics or soul or whatever. And so men and boys were very closed off, and that energy was just really yucky to me. And also they would subconsciously were trying to bully all the men around them to stay in the toxically masculine box. And I would always resist that. And so I managed to resist somehow in ways a lot of men don't. And so I didn't want to hang around men that much until I got older and ran into men who were more open and loving and had a nurturing energy. And I believe.
Yes, believe it or not, I am loving.
Very loving. Very loving. And I felt safe with him in a way I've never felt safe with any man. And it's safety for me. It's energy of safety is what fuels romance and sexuality. Is I have to feel safe with the person. And I felt safe with him immediately.
So it's almost, I think, I'm not pan, so I don't understand everything. But I do understand the similarities. Yeah. And I think it's almost like that. Like, it's like you're walking as a puzzle piece. And then just something connects you, regardless of their gender, what they look like and all that. You're just like, okay, this is my person. So you see a person as opposed to somebody. Does that make sense? Like, you know,
a soul.
Yeah, as opposed to like, you know, who they present themselves to be. That's secondary to your, if anything, if it even matters. What matters is that soul, that person. Do you feel safe? Do you feel connected? Is there some chemistry there? Is that
energy exchange? And chemistry, by the way, it can be a slow burn. A lot of people date from places.
Slow Benson burns.
Like, I want chemistry on date 1, date 5, and like, well, probably by date 5 there should be some chemistry. But like, I felt like speaking for myself, I need to give myself time, because true intimacy takes time to build, and sometimes compatibility informs intimacy and chemistry. Like, oh, I'm so compatible with this person. With all due respect, I don't believe in love at first sight. I believe in infatuation at first sight. Certainly when I met him, there was this download of like, stay with him. stay with this man. Where that went is something I did not know, but I felt like there's someone I need to stay with, Anil. I felt that date 1 and 2 already, but love takes time. It takes time to build, and you can be infatuated with someone. Often for me, if I feel fireworks the second I meet them, like that's always usually a bad sign that like I'm actually connecting to something that's superficial and it's not.
You connecting to a fantasy
yes.
more than like what's in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, going and exploring and realizing how comfortable I was with all these different genders, and gender was not really a factor in terms of a relationship for me. It's the energy of the person and the energy exchanged and that, and then sometimes I'm in the mood for masc or femme or non-binary, like they feel that, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to share about the pansexual?
I think it takes as long as it takes. I came out at 37.
He did. That was a year ago. Just a year. Can you believe it? It was just a year.
And it's been such a leap even since then. And I think we think of progress in any area of our life as these slow little steps going up to a plateau. But honestly, when science will back this up, that we actually get to a certain place and we leap forward. And for me, when I had sex for the first time and I healed from that fear of exploring my sexuality, that I was not only going to be safe with others would be safe with me. Because my real fear that I found was I was afraid of hurting other people by being sexual with them. Because I was taught men hurt. They don't have a sexuality, they just hurt. They're assaulters. That was my program. So by having sex and realizing that wasn't true, and I was, as a male, I could embrace my maleness and be proud of it and love myself for who I was. And now I'm very proud to be male and very happy to be male. So what I'm telling everyone is it doesn't matter how old you are when you come out or whatever, I don't regret any of that time because that all led up to where I am now. And so just keep working at it. And if you're not sure, go explore, go experiment if you can safely, because you'll be surprised at just the exploration itself.
Yeah.
The results don't matter. You're going to end up where you need to end up. The exploration can make you so happy and so free.
Yeah, as cliche as it sounds, it's really the journey. But let's summarize. So if we have listeners who are wondering what they are or what they're feeling, let's summarize briefly. So what is pansexual? I think it's on your shirt.
It's on my shirt, if you can read it. But basically, the simplest definition of pansexuality is somebody who is attracted to all genders or attracted regardless of gender. And which is different from bisexual, which can mean attracted to 2 or more genders, or polysexual, which means you're attracted to most but not necessarily all genders. Now, that's a definition in a book. Your definition is going to be different. Some people would identify as pansexual with the bisexual definition, or vice versa. Or omnisexual is another one where people can sometimes shift on the spectrum. So we're lovers, not experts. I don't have a degree in sexuality or orientations. My definition of pansexual is connecting to the energy exchange. While there may be a gender preference, from time to time there is no requirement. It's about the person and how we connect. Our energy connects, and that energy connection. And different connections can be different levels of a relationship, casual or romantic. So it doesn't have to be monogamous or hetero-romantic or anything like that. You get to live your own life. You get to love who you love. And when you come out and make that choice, if you're single, you have that freedom to explore and not have to ask permission. That's how I would identify with it, but as you know, we'll be having more people on to doing interviews, and they'll tell you their story and how their definition of pansexuality might be different from mine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For sharing that, coming out and realizing who you are story.
Yeah, and so it's never too late. Just keep exploring yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. A week ago, I was with Joe and his friends from ever since, 30 years. Whatever.
High school, college, yeah.
And it's funny because we talked, I was like, did anybody get surprised when Joe came out? Everybody was like, no. That's what he meant by, okay. But I don't think it was because people thought he was gay or whatever. I just think that people thought there was something that you were keeping and everybody could feel it.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't even consciously aware of it because I wasn't ready to explore it yet. And that's okay. And so my straight friends were like, I'm not surprised. And my queer friends were like, we were just waiting for you to figure it out. But the best response I got was from my cousin. She said to me, I never assumed you were straight. That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it, I think, yeah. And it's funny because there's a stark contrast between Joe and I's story. Because Joe came out a year ago. I probably knew that I was gay from the moment I was born. Because I don't ever recall being straight.
Right.
That's the thing, people don't understand that. It's like, we didn't choose this. We didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm gonna be gay today. That's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
Because you're talking about a fundamental part of who you are. You know, the nature versus nurture thing, I don't really want to delve into that, because it's like, why am I going to allow other people to dictate how I felt? So I don't remember ever being straight. Yeah. I remember already loving girly things, you know, and everybody had these theories because I was raised by a single mother that, you know, it could be that I didn't have male influence in my life. I did. I had a lot of bad male influence in my life growing up, and I'm not gonna trash anybody, but I did. I was surrounded by men. So it's like, it's not, oh, because I didn't have a dad, like that was the whole idea behind it.
I was gonna say, like, as a pansexual person or bisexual or people are attracted to more than one gender, you can code switch. Yeah. And you might be able to fit in with the heteronormativity like I did.
Yeah.
You didn't have that option.
No. I really couldn't. Like, I couldn't, I don't know, like, it's you. If you're a person, if you were born that way, like, how do you control it? You know, so I couldn't. Growing up, it was bad because, you know, so many people were like, man up a little, because I was very femme. And I'm like, what? Like, man up? Do you want me to arc like you? Like, I was like, ew. I don't want to model after these disgusting guys who spit on the floor or, like, you know, whatever, like, do manly stuff that's like, no, that's really gross. So growing up, I already knew that I was different, and it was scary. As a child, it was very scary that I knew that I was different and I didn't feel any sense of security. And then growing up in a very Catholic nation and going to school in a very Catholic school, it was scary every day. And I hid those behind my loud personality, my laughters, because I was so defensive. And that's the worst part. And I think that's what people don't understand when they talk about us and our sexuality, how deeply rooted their role was in making sure I was either afraid or I was either happy.
Right.
Like, society, like, played a very big role, and they always underplay this. When, you know, when talks about suicide happens, they underplay their role. But it's all about everybody around me. You know, I never felt safe, I never felt secure growing up, except when I was with my mother. Because even if my mother was a really religious person, I knew that she was gonna accept me. Like, there, you just have that feeling.
Right.
So I never had that fear with my mother that she wouldn't accept me. I just had the fear that she would, you know, she would talk my head off. Where it was like, you're gonna go to hell, and she did. Anyway, so I'm skipping. But, so as a child, I knew that I was gay. So it was hard, because I was already attracted to guys. This is why I believe in Sigmund Freud. Even if, you know, I remember everybody hearing about that in college. Everyone's like, oh, we weren't thinking about sex when we were kids. Stop lying, you were. Like, stop lying.
Was thinking about sex.
And it wasn't
at
because,
every age.
And it wasn't because you were perverts. You were kids. You were exploring. You were curious. It is part of life. The thing is, you know, coming from that retraining, you have to rewire yourselves and think this is not bad. But growing up strictly Catholic, everything you did was bad. You could never have fun. But, you know, everybody did it behind the church's back anyway. So it's like, you can't stop humanity from being human. So I grew up that way. It was scary. I was bullied a lot. Not only because I was gay, but because I was really fat. And then I wasn't Catholic. My mom was an evangelical. So I wasn't Catholic going to a Catholic school. So everything was against me. I went against everything that had to be me. I went against being straight. I went against being fit. I don't know. I don't have any health complications, but everybody will dictate what I should or shouldn't do without knowing what my situation is. No, I don't have health complications. Don't be surprised. I don't have diabetes. Ha! Anyway, it's that. So I grew up in a box that I shouldn't be in. That's why it was so hard as a child. And I was bullied a lot, not just by people at school, at home. I was bullied a lot at home, my family, outside my direct family, big freaking bullies. Yeah, I don't care if you listen. Big freaking bullies that they would always find what was wrong with you. I don't know if that's inherently in Filipino culture, where, you know, because people always complain about it in reunions and stuff.
When I had bullies. I think it's universal.
It's an inherent, you know, people will always find what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And then highlight that.
What do they think is wrong?
And then
when society says, oh, this is outside the heteronormative blah, 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 blah. Get them.
So it's like, and wait, and the way I behave. Like, I remember seeing, like, adults, you know, talking behind my back. I was a child going like, oh, he's a big gay one, isn't he? And, you know, it sucks to hear that as a child. But I think, if anything, it made me so much stronger. Because I knew that at a young age that I only had myself to rely on. And I didn't have, or the privilege of being what society expected me to be. So I was always fighting, you know, and it sucked. Because imagine, as a child, you grew up, and every day you go to school, you're at home or whatever, you're living your life, and everybody's saying you are wrong. That's the part I hated so much. So I was always questioning. But again, I met a lot of friends. So I love them up to this day. Of course, I didn't come out formally until high school, you know, but when I came out, everybody was like, of course! I'm like, are you seriously coming out?
You homosexual.
Because I was a girl, basically, in boys' uniform. But that's how, you know, you lean into it. I met a lot of good friends who imagined this in, like, early 2000s in Manila, accepting you for being gay. So I thank them every day, because I think it was having my best friends growing up in high school, and them accepting me, tolerating me, even, like, you know, I was mostly around girls, and they would also, like, they would buy makeup and make me try it. Although I was never really into that. I questioned if I was trans or what. I'm just really femme. After my conversations last night with other non-binary friends, they were just like, you're just really femme. You don't need a label. And I'm attracted to just men. Unfortunately, I'm not as cool as Joe.
What did I just say?
Not as cool as Joe.
No.
I know. But that's the thing. So basically, I knew at a young age, and then I had friends who supported me. No adults. I will say this right here. No adults supported me outside my peers, because everybody told me I was wrong. Except for maybe a few teachers in high school who knew and, like, fancied it, I guess. They found it funny. Because, you know, I was always laughing. I had this front where I was, like, this happy persona. But I was heavily bullied by the boys at school. So I hate you guys up to this day, by the way. And I'm still wishing for the worst. I'm kidding. No, I'm maybe half kidding. And then, in turn, I bullied others. So, you know, if there are people who are listening to this that I bullied, I'm really sorry, because it was a pattern. And I didn't mean to. I was on survival mode every day. Imagine that. Like, imagine every day of your life, you're told you're wrong. So my friends did the exact opposite. They told me I could be myself, that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And, you know, eventually, through college, I didn't have to come out to my mom. It was a funny story. I remember it was my sister and my cousin who mentioned to me that mom knows. I will get into, like, how, but mom knows. So my friends were very supportive, both high school and college. I remember one of my friends came from a trip, and she brought back to me a box of glow-in-the-dark condoms. And I was in college. I know I was hiding it because I didn't want my mom to assume that I was sexually active, which I was. But, well, that's another story. And one day it was gone. And I remember calling my cousin, and I'm like, do you know where my box of condoms? And then he started laughing. He was like, yeah, your mom saw it, and she threw it. Wow, thanks, Mom. Like, I mean, you know, that generation was like, let's throw it so they don't do it. I'm like, you just exposed me to so many possible things. But of course, they don't know that.
Safer sex, hello.
Hello, you know, science, hello, which is, like, so hard.
Such an old attitude. Well,
Yeah.
if we get rid of the condoms, if we get rid of the accoutrement, then they'll stop. No, they'll just keep doing it, and they might do it in a much less safe way.
Yeah. And then, good thing I wasn't, you know, really affected by it. So he started laughing, and he was like, Anil, your mom has known for years. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I thought I was, hiding it properly. But clearly I was not. And then he goes like, yeah, she's known. She talked to me. She cried because, she was afraid of the going to hell part. But, thanks, and then I called my sister and she confirmed it. And she was like, she saw a bunch of pictures on your computer. What? I had some like gay fan fictions or something with pictures, and then she saw, and then I remember my mom came home and I just went to her room and I was like, so and she was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. No. And I was like, Ma, and then I just hugged her and then she cried again. And that was it. And then she had been very supportive ever since. She just always reminded me that, I would go to hell. I don't know. I think she always kept to it being a phase. And the thing, though, is if you're a parent listening, that is not good. Because, again, you constantly reminded me that I wasn't right, that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, that I had to be repaired. A lot of people did that. A lot of people did that in the guise of concern. You question, who are you really concerned with? Yourself? Or is it the person you're actually talking to, which is me? So, they did that. And what I realized was it does get better. But the acceptance has to come from you. Because society will not. That's what I always tell Joe. I was like, you can't control what people think. And you shouldn't. And second, you shouldn't please anybody. You shouldn't come into this world thinking you should meet standards of other people. They don't pay your bills. They don't feed you. They didn't send you to school. None of that. They don't get a say in your life.
And they're not going to take care of you. Only you can take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Even family members, when they say we're family, F you. Like, if you're family, you would support me. In my experience, family was the first one to bring me down. And it was never fun, and I was bullied, and I hated being a child because of it. I don't even ever think that I had an actual childhood because I was bullied. I mean, I did find that so dramatic. I did, but I was bullied. So being a child, like having fun and stuff, you're too fam. You're playing, you're having fun, you're a child. I'm in my Barbie world, in my Barbie universe, which has come out in theaters. I'm in my Barbie universe, and then, an uncle would be like, you're too fam, shut up. You're a child. And that's why I'm just so happy that my friends now who are parents, I see them very nurturing. My sister is very nurturing to her kids. Like, there wasn't that, because I was severely bullied growing up by my own family, whether they were uncles, aunties, cousins. It was horrible. And then you get to school, classmates, teachers, it was horrible. But there are those who support you, and I love those who have, because all those experiences turned me to who I was. I'm stronger, not only strong, but I love that how it turned me into this very aware person where I'm self-aware and I'm aware of others' emotions. And I think that's why I am able to make people feel safe, because I mean it. Because I know how it is to grow up not feeling safe, feeling that everything you did, somebody was watching you and somebody was waiting for that moment to tell you were wrong. But you take it all and you turn it into strength. You don't let it bring you down. Instead, you take it upon you, not to prove to anybody else, but to prove to yourself that you have a space in this world and nobody gets to tell you otherwise. Nobody. It's your space, it's your life. You have a purpose. And, it's gonna be tough. That's what I keep saying to people who are realizing if they should come out or not. It's gonna be tough. But at the same time, you are coming out at the right time, if it's these days, because you have a larger support system. There's more literature available about conditions, or, I don't mean this as a condition, I just meant, societal conditions, or what conditions you will face as a person, what conditions you will go through. So there are so many options now to have your sword and shield, and then to feel safe with yourself, and to get the support. So for me, that's what made it better. It's just finding people who support you. And you know what? That is enough. Even if they're not your siblings, they're not your parents, they're not your teachers, even if they're your friends, that is more than enough to get you through life. And they really did that for me. And I appreciate all my friends. I miss you guys all so much. They're all in the Philippines. I love them so much. And they know that. But yeah, so I think for anybody who's thinking about it, or questioning or scared, yeah, be afraid. But also at the same time, it's going to sound really weird, but use that fear and sew it into courage change because you can be happy. I'm very happy now. I mean, I met somebody I can love for as long as I can, and then
because we don't know what tomorrow brings is what he means.
I mean, you never know with life, and that's the thing. That's why Joey and I, we always say no ceilings, no boxes, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We have to live in today and appreciate today for what it is, because so that's why I'm this way. It's because of those experiences, but I'm able to process them with the help of a support system. So don't be afraid. I mean, in college, I started Pride Week with MJ, one of my good friends. When we were in college.
Pride Week, not month.
Yeah, we fought for a Pride Week in our Catholic university. We were happy that they granted it to us, and it wasn't much of a big fight. There was some pushback, but our university was, very committed to education, I think. And I love every personality who supported us. And then recently, we found out last June they opened the university with Pride Month. My goodness, how many years later? They opened it decades later, and so oh my God, I sound so old, but they did. So there's always that. So also at the same time, it's like, don't feel discouraged from fighting, because you're not fighting anyone. That's the thing I want to make it clear. You're in a battle with yourself, because these are all just noises. And if you validate the noises, if you give those voices power over you, then that's your surrender. That's your white flag. So don't. Always listen to your instinct, always listen to your voice, and always follow your heart. I know it sounds impossible, but it's not. It's impossible because you're going to rewire your brain and try to fight, and you're like, oh no, this is going to happen, then this person, and I was telling Joe that, I was like, yeah, if you know exactly what's going to happen, you're in charge. You know what I mean? So I'm like, so why are you afraid? If you know how so-and-so is going to react, how this and that is going to happen, why are you afraid? Then it means you're in control. And, that's my story, essentially. It's like, I just knew how to navigate around people's views and belief and really use that to, take courage. But not everybody is like me. And we know that. And that's why...
Not everyone has a safe place.
Yes.
And so if you're in a place where you don't feel safe to come out for whatever reason, you have us.
Yeah.
Listen to our podcast. Send us emails.
Yeah,
we're here for you.
We'd love to be here because, again, we experienced it. The reason we're out here, we're talking to you guys and we're sharing our stories, is because we had strong support systems and we believed in ourselves. Again, I have to say, it's not the opinion of others. Our support system happened to be there. If you don't have one, there will always be people who will support you.
And the internet is a powerful tool for love.
Yes. I guess some people might say, oh, well, we don't have friends and we don't... That's understandable, and that happens. Now you have tools. Now we have tools to help each other, to reach out, to communicate. Because I think at the end of the day, yes, we relied on our personal strength, and then we allowed some people in our lives. That's the secret, I think. Because if you allow everyone in your life, then you just end up being this people pleaser, and then you will always feel inept because you cannot please everybody.
Stop talking about me.
I mean, I get it.
I've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
But I would say, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in the United States, in a very progressive, liberal environment. And I did have a good support structure. And Anil grew up in Manila, in the Philippines, a very conservative, Catholic, let's say anti-gay country, at least at the time.
It's weird. They're not anti-gay, but it's like we're pro-gay with conditions.
Yeah.
So it's like anti-gay.
Yeah, and we both found our way. We found our support systems. He came out very young, I came out a lot older, and we're both in the same place in a lot of ways in our journey. So there is no right or wrong way, as long as you're continuing to follow your heart and go on your journey.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong, and it's that. It's like, do not give people power over you. That's yours to give. You're consciously doing it. So I hope people understand that. You're also consciously not doing it. So if you have people who bring you down, there's the block button right there. That's what I did. So if I'm not replying to you, I blocked you. Because it means you bring me down.
So that's our story. That's where we came from and why we're here today doing this podcast. And I mean, are you jealous? You should be. Look at this wonderful movie.
I wish. It's not our story in depth, but no. It is like a bird's eye view of who we are, and essentially what we're doing this because we're sharing our stories, and we hope people listen, and we hope we can empower people or just offer support to those people who are going through this, or who have questions, or would like some notes from our experience. And, to share a pansexual and gay perspective, I guess, to the world.
To the world. And now that you've heard our stories, we want to hear your story. So if you want to be a guest on Pan Talk, email us at pantalkpod@gmail.com. You can come in person, we can do it over the internet, whatever works for you. You can be on camera, you can be off camera. You can come on with a name and a face, you can be anonymous. It's entirely up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. So thank you all for listening to the podcast.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to the Pan Talk podcast. Don't forget to rate, like, comment, and subscribe wherever your ears absorb our content. And remember, if you're interested in being a Pan Talk guest, you can email us at pantalkpod@gmail.com. Until next time, my beautiful humans, have a fantastic day.